ask yourself, coronavirus has been here for almost 2 years. HIV has been with us for almost 40 years, or maybe more than 40 years. And we now officially have more than 5 vaccines from China, Russia, US, Britain, blah, 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 blah. But there is no vaccine for HIV and AIDS. What do you think is happening? Have you ever asked yourself that question? In a period of 2 years, we have a vaccine, but in a period of 40 years, nothing is happening. I don't want to generate another conspiracy trying to explain why all this is happening. But I want to answer that question into two. And I'll divide that question, or rather that answer, into two. Number one, there is what we call the medical explanation. And we have what we call the socio-economical explanation. I'm going to make several videos of this topic because it's sort of a broad topic. Yeah, I know what you're asking yourself. Okay, whoa, hang on a second. Will this guy explain the medical aspect of it based on what he is dressed and what he is doing? No. By qualification or by profession, I am a medical biotechnologist and I'm a graduate from Maseno University. So I exactly know what I'm doing. I've covered viruses, protozoa, I've covered all those bacteria, everything as far as the diseases are concerned. So anyway, but I'm doing this, courtesy of government. You understand what I say? They create nothing for the youth. But anyway, that's not the topic. So the answer question number one, or rather one part of the question I'll say, it is because of what we call the medical aspect of the virus. You find that HIV virus has a very funny kind of science or biology, I should say. You find that the HIV virus mutates at a very, very high rate. You find that it changes its form from one form to the other. Before you study one form, it changes to another one, it changes to another one. Coronavirus does so as well, but you find the rate at which the HIV does so, it's more or it's higher compared to that of coronavirus. And that's why you find it's very tricky to curb the spread of HIV and AIDS. They've tried to come up with different type of medicines, that is the ART, the antiretroviral. One is Truvada, we have the existing one. We find that they have different ways of how they counter the effective of the HIV and AIDS. One is before the virus binds with the CCR5 receptors of the cell and before it is internalized into the cell to counter the DNA, because what happens is that the virus makes the DNA from the RNA. We call it the reverse transcription, where they make the DNA from RNA. I know that's a sort of a complex science, but what happens is that the virus of the HIV virus is very, very tricky to treat, or rather to curb, to mutate. The whole aspect of a vaccine is that they take the virus itself, they attenuate it to make it weak, or they weaken it so that they can be able to make a vaccine out of it. So once they have taken the attenuated virus, they inject in you trigger the immune response to produce the antibodies corresponding to the antigen of the virus, so that they can counteract. That's the simple science of the vaccine. But you find to do that exactly with the vaccine, it's a bit tricky, because the HIV virus, just like I've said before, it is very, very complex, as much as it is very hard to do so. That's number one. That's a very, very brief explanation. Now I go to the other one. If you look at the statistics, the socioeconomic one, if you look at the statistics of the HIV in the entire world, in Kenya we have a population of 1.6 million people affected by the HIV. But if you go to Europe, you find like maybe a country like America, if you go to America, I should say, you find like they have a population of 1.2 million. Correct me if I'm wrong on these figures, but if your population there is 330 million or above. If you go to China, it's almost a million, even lesser than a million, but you find the population there is over 1.4 billion people. If you go to Russia as well, you find the number of people living with HIV is much lower. So this is a problem with Africa. The HIV is concentrated in Africa. Actually, South Africa, if you didn't know, it is the most populated country with HIV and AIDS cases. So you find that thing does not affect people, those who have the capability and the power and the money to develop the virus. You find that America, it is not really an issue. It does not affect them as we think it does. To us, it affects us, but you see, we do not have what we call the financial the muscle, you don't have the financial power that you can be able to fund research consistently. If you go to our research centers such as KEMRI, the Kenya Medical Research Institute, you find that to sustain a research to generate or to produce a vaccine is not a simple thing. That's why you find KEMRI, I think it's Kilifi or something of sort, they had a partnership with the Oxford University to develop the vaccine for COVID-19, but in the middle or along the way, the Kenyan one, was left behind because of the finance, because our government hardly funds the research centers. So you find if something really affects you, you have to do something about it. But if you go to those countries like Europe, America, and Asians, especially the Middle East Asians, you find it is not a problem. So to them, they won't give that attention. But if HIV was affecting the whole world, just like the coronavirus is affecting the whole world, then the whole world sit down and now discusses the HIV and we can be able to develop the vaccine. So it's all about socioeconomic, it's all about the willpower, I should call it. So those are two things, the way of how you can answer that question as to why we hardly have the vaccine for HIV virus. So it's a call for African presidents to make sure that they fund the generation of the vaccine, because actually this disease is killing people. The other thing you should also ask yourself, okay, between how much is the HIV affecting people versus how much is it helping, you find that the number of people who benefit from HIV virus maybe are more compared to those who are affected by the HIV virus. What do I mean by that is that the number of people who have been employed to sensitize people, to provide those, medicine, the ART, to provide care also to those pharmaceutical companies producing those medicine and such, you see, eradicating the HIV, you mean they won't be in business. Maybe not, I do not know. Maybe they can have something that they make sure that does not happen. I promise you, I have not exhausted everything. Well, now we will go to the next part of this video. I'll have part 2, part 3, part 4 consistently, so that I can be able to explain to you exactly what transpires as far as the generation or production of a vaccine is concerned. My name is Joseph. Talk about self-development, I talk about finance, and I talk about social life. Consider subscribing so you'll be part of my family. We go together. You share your mind. Tell me what you think. You don't have to agree with me, just like I said, but I'm sure I can learn from you, just like you can learn from me. Just like an iron sharpens another iron, so can I learn from you. Thank you and have a good time. See you in the next one.